My name is Sam Desalu. I'm an image consultant and I am the co-founder of AfrikaFifty6 and I am a voice of hope. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria. I came to America when I was 4 years old with my mother and my sister, and we stopped over in New York City, as you know, all Nigerians do before they branch out into other states, before we moved to Chicago. And we were in the south side of Chicago for 2 years. We stayed with my uncle. And the 2 years on the south side of Chicago was kind of rough, you know, kind of rougher than what it was now. 2 bullets came through our window and my mom was like, yo, we gotta move. So she, she packed us up and we moved to the south suburbs of Chicago to a town called Richmond Park. And that's where we kind of we settled and we grew up there. Richmond Park became the city as well because, the city of Chicago started to gentrify and all the projects were being, torn down and they were moving all the, everybody south to the south suburbs. So Richmond Park became basically, the hood itself. So it was tough growing up in Richmond Park as well. Got into a lot of fights, did things I wasn't supposed to do, had a few run-ins with the cops, Me and my mother didn't have the best relationship growing up, when I was growing up, to the point where she sent me back to Nigeria when I was 15 for 2 years. And the 2 years I spent in Nigeria were the best 2 years of my life. I got to learn more about the culture. Got to, be with my grandmother, got to go to school and experience, everything that I kind of missed before I came to America. I gave my life to Christ when I was in Nigeria. Started reading the Bible more, better grades, because before I left, my GPA was 0 point something. But when I came back, I was in all honors classes in high school, so, that was pretty dope. But, when you come back to the States and then you're surrounded by what you left, you kind of get drawn back into, that life again. So I hung around some cool cats, and then I hung around some cats who didn't really do too well in society. So I was stuck in between, on the good side and the bad side. But for the most part, I was good. Didn't really get into too much trouble. Went to college, but then I realized, school wasn't for me. I just felt there was more out there for me to do. So I was I need to move around. So I dropped out of college. And I moved to New York in 2009, and that's when the real hustle, started, the real grind. So when I decided to drop out of college, I never really even told my mother I was gonna drop out. It was more why haven't you been going to class? I'm not really feeling it anymore. And my mom, she's always been very supportive of me. She wasn't the typical African mom where it's go to school, be a doctor, be a lawyer. She had her ways where she tried to make me do certain things, but she's always follow your dreams. And I told her this is something I want to do. I just can't sit in a room and be taught things that I'm not going to use, in the real world. So when I was I'm going to move to New York, she was okay, I trust you. And she was you have my blessing. And that's when I took off. But even when I moved to New York, I still needed her help as a mother, because when I made that transition, I was broke, So she kind of sponsored my plane ticket. She paid for me to stay in a hostel for 2 weeks. She gave me 2 weeks to kind of get my myself together. So basically find a job, find a decent place to stay, all in 2 weeks. So I had to make it work. And yeah, my mom, she was cool with me dropping out. But she didn't like it. But as an African mother, and all she knows is education, education. She felt some type of way, but she knew what type of person I was. And she was you have my blessing, you have my support, I trust you. Go ahead and do what you have to do. So she dropped me off at the airport. I get on the plane, we say our goodbyes, our hugs. And she was God bless you. I was cool, got on the plane. I landed in New York, you know, I landed in the Big Apple. I'm like, yo, I'm finally here. It's crazy, you know, because I see New York all the time on CSI New York, which is one of my favorite TV shows. I'm like, yo, it's crazy to be here. So as soon as I land, you know, I check into the hostel where I'm staying at. It's in Chelsea, which is a, you know, a very posh area of Manhattan. And like as soon as I drop my bags off, like, I instantly hit the ground looking for jobs. So I'm literally walking up and down Fifth Avenue, 23rd Street, just looking for jobs. And it's just like so tough. So 2 days into my stay in New York, my auntie, you know, my mother's sister, finds out that I'm in New York, and she was like, "Why are you staying in a hostel? You know, when I live in, you know, Queens, New York, you can stay with me." But I didn't contact my auntie because her and my mother had a childhood beef that my auntie was still like holding a grudge on. So I was like, you know, I'm not gonna waste my time and ask. So she finds out I'm there, and she comes and gets me, like, "Yo, you know, get your remaining money back and come stay with me in Queens with, you know, my husband and, you know, your cousins." So I stay with her, and for 2 weeks, you know, I'm out at like 8 o'clock in the morning on the A train to Manhattan, and I'm like in Soho and Tribeca in different areas looking for jobs, and it's just like so hard, like nobody's calling me back. So then I just realized, like, maybe, you know, I'm shooting too high as far as like what I want for a job. Like, let me just kind of, you know, put my pride to the side and start applying to places that, you know, I wouldn't want to work at, but I know will probably hire me. So I walk into AMC Theaters in Times Square, and I ask them, like, you know, "Are you guys hiring?" They're like, "Yeah," you know. So I put in the application. 2 days later, you know, I get a call for a job. Cool, thank God, you know, I have a job now. And then I get home, I tell my auntie, you know, I have a job now, you know, I'm gonna start making money. And then she hits me with the whole, like, you have to leave. You know, me and your mother, we talked, and we still can't, you know, come to terms on, you know, this childhood beef we had back in like 1970. I'm like, wow. So you really gonna kick me out? And she was like, you know, you can't stay here. So I tried to go back to the hostel I was staying at. They were fully booked. So I had to like Google hostels. I found one in Harlem on 128th Street. And you know, like from TV and like what, you know, you see like, oh, Harlem, damn, you know, like Harlem is crazy. Like they shoot people out there. It's probably worse than Chicago, but I'm like, F it, like I have nowhere else to go. This hostel has, you know, open availability, so I went there. And then I stayed there, you know, I was working, grinding, working like 13, 14-hour days. I even picked up a second job. I got a job at Zara, which was a little better. So I'm working, you know, both jobs, trying to, you know, maintain in New York City. And I met this girl. She's from Sweden, and she was staying in the room I was staying in, and she was telling me about this other hostel that was like cheaper, and she was like, "Yo, you should come with me." And this is how I know, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, God looked out for me on, like, you know, my transition from Chicago to New York, because the hostel I went to was on 128th, and then I was told about a cheaper one on 126th, and that's where I met this guy who's a manager of the hostel, and he always asked me, like, "Yo, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Yo, I work at AMC Theaters, and I also work at Zara." He was like, "Cool, that's dope." And I'm like, "You know, if you ever want to come watch a movie, you know, I have a little plug, you know, come watch a movie." So him and his friends came one night to see Avatar. This was like when Avatar was out. It was like a big commotion. And they came and saw Avatar. They had a good time. And then when they left, they said, you know, "Thank you and bye." So when I was coming back in from work, like around 3, he was like, "Yo, bro, thank you, you know, for letting us watch this movie. It was awesome. Yo, I want to work out a deal with you. You know, movies in New York City are like $14, man. It's super expensive. Like, how about I let you stay here for free, and, you know, you let me watch movies for free?" And I'm like, "Are you serious?" He was like, "Yeah, I mean, you're a good dude. You don't cause trouble. You're just in and out working. That's all I see you do." And I'm like, "Wow, like, thank you." So for like 8 months, I stayed in that hostel, and, you know, I stacked my bread up, and yeah, that was definitely a blessing. So as I started, you know, getting more into, you know, doing fashion while I was working at Zara, because, you know, I used to dress the mannequins, I was putting together a shoot back in Chicago with my sister because she's a hairstylist. So we were prepping for the shoot in New York, and we were gonna, you know, fly everything back to Chicago. And we were walking out of the train station in Soho, and I ran into this guy who is now like, you know, like a mentor to me. His name is Ricardo, and he was like, "Yo, like, what do you guys do? Are you guys stylists?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know, we are stylists." So he gave me his card, and he was like, "Yo, when you get back from Chicago, definitely hit me up. I want to work with you." So I went to Chicago, did my shoot. It was a success. Came back, and I hit him up. We sat down, we talked, you know, did a couple projects together. And he's like, "I'm moving out of my apartment in Harlem on 129th Street. Do you know anybody looking for a space? Because I'm moving in with my fiance in Tribeca. I was like, yeah, you know, I'm actually looking for a space, you know? So he's like, go to this address. The lady upstairs will let you in to see the apartment. I went there, I saw the apartment. Like, it was beautiful. It was a 2-bedroom, hardwood floors, leather couches, flat screen TV. Like, it was decked out. And all I had to do was just come in with my 2 bags and, you know, I'm home. And I was like, yo, man, I don't think I can afford that. I mean, I know prices in Harlem aren't as much as, you know, the city, but what do you want, like, you know, $2,000? He's like, nah, man, just give me $1,000 a month. Just take care of my place. I was like, are you serious? He was like, yeah. So what's crazy is when I went to Harlem, the hostel was on 128th Street. And then, you know, I caught a blessing at another hostel on 126th Street where I was staying. And then I caught a super blessing because his apartment was just 2 blocks down on 129th Street. And I was like, wow, that's just God, because I didn't really have to move too much. It was like blessing after blessing after blessing. So I stayed in Harlem for a while, and, you know, it was good. It was good. It was good. When I started, like, actually styling, I was doing, you know, like, shoots here and there with, like, different photographers and other stylists. And I started assisting this stylist named Micah McDonald. I met him through a girl I was dating in Chicago who now lived in New York. And she introduced me to him, like, yo, you guys should work together. Like, you know, Sam is an up-and-coming stylist. Micah, you're already, you know, in the game. You guys should work together. So I worked on a few projects with Micah. And on set, I met this girl. Man, forgive me because I don't even know her name. I don't remember her name anymore. But she interned at BET. And, you know, we hung out a few times, and I met the lady who she was interning for. And when I met her, she was like, yo, there's something about you. I like you. Like, you have good energy. Like, I want to help you. Like, what is it that you do? I'm like, you know, I style. She was like, wow, that's amazing. You know, would you like an internship in the water department at BET? I'm like, man, I would love that. So she introduced me to a lady who I call, like, my industry mom. Her name is Texana Watts. And she was the fashion director at BET, and she's the one that basically allowed me to intern without actually being in school. So while I was there, I studied under her and a few other stylists who worked there. I became a sponge. Like, I soaked up everything they were teaching me, from, you know, how to put looks together, how to pull from showrooms and stores. And I also learned the business side as well, which is very important. And, you know, while I was there, I was just gaining so much knowledge that I was like, you know, Sam, you can finally, you know, branch off and do this on your own. So that's when I was like, okay, you know, it's time to move on. And what's crazy is my first client was Genuine. I worked with him on his new album and did a video with him, which is pretty dope. And then I just started, you know, picking up, you know, odd jobs here and there. And I was still assisting Micah at the time. So while assisting Micah, you know, I worked on different videos. And then he hit me up one day and was like, yo, so I might be working with, you know, Tyrese. I was like, wow, that's dope. I was like, you know, definitely let me know if you need assistance. He's like, yeah, bro, I got you. So our first project with Tyrese was his album packaging for his album called Open Invitation. Like, we killed the shoot. Tyrese, you know, loved everything. He was like, yo, Micah, you know, I want to work with you. He was like, awesome. You know, so Micah became his full-time stylist, and I was Micah's assistant. So while working with Tyrese, you know, we worked on a lot of video shoots, a lot of magazine shoots, and just, you know, press for him, which is pretty dope. And then after a while, you know, I stopped working with Micah. You know, nothing bad happened. It's just like, you know, like, I don't know what to call that. So when things weren't going so well in New York City, as far as like money and work, I decided to just go back to Chicago, you know, and go back to the drawing board and kind of like, you know, get my life together. So I was, you know, on the couch at my mother's house, and I was thinking like, yo, man, I'm broke. You know what I'm saying? I'm back at square one. Like, I'm embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, nobody really knew what was going on with me. They just knew I went back to Chicago. But I knew what was going on. I was like, yo, this is not a good position to be in. But then, like, as I laid there on my mom's couch, I was like, yo, like, I have a lot to be grateful for. You know, I've done a lot within, like, you know, the 2 years, you know, that I left and came to, you know, New York. And I was like, I'm still in a better position than, you know, those in Africa where I'm from. You know, because in Africa, things we take for granted here in America, like, they wish they had, you know, in Africa. Like clean water, you know, running water, hot showers, like when I was there for the 2 years, like me and my grandmother, we had to like fetch water from the well. So it's like I got the real experience, you know? So I was like, yo, there's no reason for me to be sad. And I was like, you know, if I'm not making any money, like let me just do something to give back, you know? And that's where, you know, AfrikaFifty6 like came into my mind. I was like, yo, let me just give back, you know, and help the less fortunate, because I mean, I'm fortunate, even though I'm like, I'm not rich. I was like, yo, you know, if I look out, you know, for God's people and do, you know, God's work, he'll look out for me. And that's when, you know, AfrikaFifty6 came about. And that's when I actually went back to New York after I got, you know, like, you know, my stuff together. And a good friend of mine, you know, allowed me to like stay at his place, you know, like rent free. And I kind of, you know, started working again, like doing odd jobs that was paying me decent money. And I was like, yo, I need to go to LA and like, you know, start working back with Tyrese, because I know I can get back in that circle. So that's when I was like, yo, I'm gonna make that move to LA. With everybody's blessings, you know, I took off again on a blank mission with like nothing solidified. But I mean, I always knew like, you know, wherever I go, I'm gonna be good, you know, like stepping out on faith and letting God direct your path, like everything's gonna, you know, work out. And that's when, you know, I got back in, you know, Tyrese's circle and started working with him full time, which is pretty awesome. I always looked at styling as a stepping stone to something greater. And it wasn't until, you know, AfrikaFifty6, you know, came into my mind that I realized like, this is what I'm meant to do. And everybody I've met, you know, throughout my journey of styling has kind of played a part in making AfrikaFifty6, you know, what it is and what it's going to be. And when we came up with the idea to do an event with Tyrese, I was like, you know, it would be dope to kind of like utilize the contacts, you know, the people I know to kind of help me bring this into fruition. And I approached Tyrese like, yo, you know, we would love to do an event with you, you know, with my nonprofit. And this idea came about in his backyard, where all his great ideas, you know, come about. It's like, that's where he goes and he just thinks of like the craziest ideas that actually are like, you know, successes. And he was like, you know what, you're Nigerian, and this issue in Nigeria is a sad issue. It's very sad, you know, and the whole world is like looking to Nigeria now. Like, why don't we do a benefit concert to help raise money for this issue? And we can give it to, you know, a charity of your choice, whether it be like Red Cross or UNICEF. And I was like, wow, a lot of people came out to support. Stevie Wonder, Ludacris, you know, a lot of supporters came, you know, purchased tickets, and the proceeds were given to UNICEF, and UNICEF, you know, allocated to that issue in Nigeria. So with that being said, it's just like, you know, we're just going to continue to grow, you know, more events with, you know, other well-known people to kind of like, you know, take AfrikaFifty6 to the next level, so we could do, you know, what we said we're going to do, basically, like, you know, helping the less fortunate kids in Africa through fashion, art, music.